being anti-Semitic. I think that term gets thrown on the people, very quickly. I think racism gets thrown on the people very quickly. I think that's a very quick and easy term and label that you can put on somebody to discredit someone. A little bit of an audible that we're doing to the show. Obviously a lot of people talking about Kanye last week in regards to kind of some of his comments. Anti-Semitic.
There you go. I couldn't say the damn word.
Comments and things like that, or, that were taken that way. Kyrie Irving with Brooklyn Nets, is basically was in a situation where he posted on Twitter basically promoting or not even promoting. It had no words of context. It was just him posting a link to a documentary that was put out that a lot of people felt was or interpreted as being anti-Semitic. Before we kind of get into it, we want to kind of place some of the things that's kind of going on real quick. So let's.
His future in Brooklyn, I think it's fair to say, is unclear because he has shown so far a resolve, a resistance to not apologize and to not denounce what is in that movie. I think where they had to suspend Kyrie Irving, the environment around the team, I think it was unsustainable. And there certainly had been the impact not just on the team and the basketball, I think the smallest part of it, but the organization, the community in Brooklyn, in New York. Again, I think Joe Tsai, their owner, thought that he could educate Kyrie Irving on the impact that this entire saga had on people, and just ultimately felt like they did not reach him. And now, finally, after a week, there's a punishment. 5 games without pay, minimally, for Kyrie Irving.
That's a slap on the hand. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's probably making $1 million a game.
Paper,
it is still paper. But in the aspect of, what he's trying to do and what he's trying to promote, I feel like he's trying to ride the same Kanye wave and really testing the waters of is it really freedom of speech, or do I have that freedom to do and say what I want? Let me test that. Let me test that boundary. I feel like that's truthfully what's really going on. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even sure of the book or movie that, he was trying to label. I've never seen or heard of it, to be 100% honest with you. So I don't have a fair opinion or judgment on what they're trying to say as far as anti-Semitic or Semitic. One of them.
So this is Kyrie Irving, he's a different individual. The way he likes to carry himself, he's a free thinker. He's not, he's not the conventional.
He's a conspiracy, for sure.
I wouldn't even say conspiracy. I don't even want to throw that on him. I think he's more, I have my opinion of his basketball play. I've said this often. Anybody that knows me, that when we talk about sports, whether at any of the jobs that I'm at, they know how I feel about his basketball play. I think he's a great basketball player. I think he's probably the best beta player out. Okay. And people say, well, beta, why would you say beta? Why ain't he alpha? Because every time he's been the big dog, he came up short.
Right.
So, but his talent is excellent talent. But that being aside, I've always appreciated his, free thought and just to kind of where he stands, whether it be the situation with the vaccine, just his own personal beliefs in regards to that. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. That's how the man feels. Now, there is a difference between this is how you feel, whether this is how he feels in this situation or with the vaccine, all the different scenarios that that we could talk about. But there's also a consequence that comes with that. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but are you free of the consequences? And so there's, at the end of the day, this is a money-driven business, and there's certain interests that have to, get their cut. And if they feel that that's going to cut in on their money or if that's going to hurt their feelings, whatever the case may be, whether that be the financiers, the investors, that type of thing, that always has to be considered.
He just gave $550,000 to a charity that is supportive of the community that he was
supposedly dissing. From what I heard, though, they said they're not going to accept it.
Right. I mean, obviously.
From what I heard, they said that they're not going to accept his donation.
When did he get that money?
You know why?
I think it was just the other day.
You want to know why? It's because he really didn't apologize.
So
you can't just give people money.
So, but we gotta stay up to date on this. As far as context goes, he did just issue an apology, literally probably about maybe 30 minutes ago.
What was the apology? Him saying, "Actually, I'm sorry,"
Yeah.
or was it saying like
It
I was
literally
taking
just came out.
responsibility?
No, it's literally just came out. So this is after him just being suspended. So I think if we trying to stay on the timeline, he was suspended probably about maybe 3 hours ago,
Okay.
3-4 hours ago, and he just issued out an apology statement. I would say, like I said, just maybe like 20 minutes ago, 20, 30 minutes ago. What they're referencing, and I think that I think this is important though, is the comparison deal. You know, with
Comparison to
going in being anti-Semitic. I think that term gets thrown on the people, very quickly. I think racism gets thrown on the people very quickly. I think that's a very quick and easy term and label that you can put on somebody to discredit someone. And I think that's not always the best approach, and nor is it fair. In this situation, you know, we're talking about him being suspended, and should the Nets suspended him? They're a business at the end of the day. I can't say to a business whether they should suspend someone if they feel that they're going to lose money. And this goes with going all the way back to the Kaepernick situation, who I 100% supported, but I understood from the team's perspective why they didn't want it, because they didn't want the circus, because they felt like the people that, you know, exchange money with them would lose money based on bringing him on the team or even entertaining the idea of bringing him in the training camp. So I understood it. Did I think it was right? No, I didn't think it was right.
Tony, let me ask you real quick. Do you think 5 game suspension is enough for the comments or remark, not even comments, but the message that was technically put out there on social media? Do you think 5 games is enough?
Enough.
I'm not even talking about enough or not. That's for the team to dictate. That is, like, I agree with Rob. Like, you have to deal with the consequences. You know what I mean? If you're going to stand up for something, yeah, you got to deal with the consequences. Is what it is. Free speech. You know what I mean? You have consequences at the end of it. I disagree with him apologizing. I don't think you should have to apologize for information. I think it's I hate this world that we live in. That's like you can't have a fair exchange of information, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later with the subject of, you know, Twitter. And it's just sad that what he was talking about is literally the book that me and Rob have already read. It's this book right here that we've already read. And it's like, if the documentary was anything like this book, there's a few things kind of disagree with, but at the same time, it's information. So if you have something to rebuttal that information, instead of going, how dare you say that? How about, hey, let me fact check you, or let me rebuttal with this. This is our history that we have written. This is why I don't believe in what you're talking about, or why I think what you're talking about is false. I think we should have better exchange. You know what I mean? Instead of just, oh, nope, suspended, whatever you do. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the team's, that's the whole, organization's deal. But I think people as a whole that see Kyrie Irving are probably like, man, how can you say that? You're anti-Semitic. You're this. Like, that's like, no, bro, you don't even know what he was talking about. You don't even know the documentary that he's talking about, that book, what it's doing, the information that's in that book that's so powerful to black people that it makes me mad. It makes me really sad.
Okay.
And I think that's the point. I think a lot of people are missing. And I preface the statement by saying this. Just because you say, hey, you should educate yourself, you should come out and say, hey, this is some information out there that you might want to, look into. That's not being anti-anything. I don't care if it's anti-Semitic, anti-black, anti-white, anti-any race. It's not, or anti-any religion. That doesn't mean that. You're putting some out there. It's information in the ether that people can consume, and they can make the decision for themselves. I'm a proponent of actually reading literature and film and movies from people who you don't necessarily agree with. That's how you educate yourself and you find your center as a person. I'm not Muslim, but I have a Quran.
Right.
That doesn't. So does that make me anti-Christian? So I looked at from that perspective, and context matters. And especially in someone like Kyrie Irving promoting that, and I don't know what's going on in his head. I don't know the man. I don't know the purpose behind why he was, why he posted the documentary that ultimately got him suspended. And there's some information in there that may, that have offended, the Jewish community or or people who are affiliated with the Jewish community or practice that religion, that hold that sacred. But I think there's you do have to take that in the context of, okay, what is he saying? He's saying, hey, he promoted. There was no context. There was no words. He didn't quote something out of the documentary that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. He didn't say like, hey, you guys should definitely watch this because this is 100% truth and everything else you've been told is a lie and all of this stuff. Like, you can't just come out and say that, oh, he's being anti this when he's just putting out information. As I said, though, earlier, the Nets they're running a business. And when you ask the question about the 5-game suspension, that's up to the organization to make that determination.
Here's my thing. I didn't think they even wanted to suspend him in the first place. Why did it take so long for them to come down to this ruling? What were they really waiting on? They were waiting on a public apology.
Well, I think they probably did. They were waiting for it, and in him not apologizing. Mm-hmm. I think they took it as a slap in the face, or they took it as, oh, you believe.
They almost did, yeah.
In this documentary, basically, you're basically doubling down. It's how I think that how they took it, because he even said it. They forced their hand. I think before we continue on anymore, I think it's important to maybe hear someone else's side of it. We just heard ESPN, basically the Brooklyn Nets side of things. Let's listen to Kyrie Irving's side of this.
Okay, two sides of the story. You right.
Hindsight, are you sorry for the hurt that your posts caused people?
I'll take my responsibility for posting that. Some things that were questionable in there, untrue. Like I said, in the first time you guys asked me when I was sitting on that stage, I don't believe everything that everybody posts. It's a documentary. So, I take my responsibility. I didn't mean to cause any harm. I'm not the one that made the documentary.
What are the specific things in the documentary that you don't believe are true and that you don't believe represent your roles?
I think some of the criticism of the Jewish faith in the community, for sure. Some points made in there that were unfortunate. Surprised that I did hurt people?
Are you surprised that reaction and some of the things that you did hurt people?
Yeah, I think I can ask a better question. It's just, where were you when I was a kid, figuring out that 300 million of my ancestors are buried in America? Where were you guys asking those same questions when I was a kid learning about the traumatic events of my familial history and what I'm proud to come from and why I'm proud to stand here and why when I repeat myself that I'm not going to stand down, it has nothing to do with dismissing any other race or group of people. I'm just proud of my heritage and what we've been through. And the fact that this has pinned me against the Jewish community. And I'm here answering questions of whether or not I'm sorry or not on something I didn't create. And it was something I shared. And I'm telling everybody I'm taking responsibility. Then that's where I sit.
Very valid points. Honestly,
Perfect.
Every interview I saw of this cut it real short. And when he actually got real for a second and talked about where were you when, 300,000 of my people
No,
were
it's like
buried.
say it million.
300 million, excuse me. All right. Of my people, my ancestors were buried. Like, I didn't really hear that part of him and his passion behind, his argument. And I hate to say this, but sometimes it's almost like the media takes certain things out of context and it almost blows it up, almost like this situation,
because they're
right?
ran by them. They're ran by them, and I can't say it.
I will say this, though. The second half of him being real had a very valid point. The first half, I was against him. I was against the fact that he didn't apologize for his actions. I was against him. But after understanding, you're right, after understanding what he said and his side of things and, how people took what he put out there in their own way and ran with it, what about his side?
I think the comparison is important,
right?
And I think the conversation is important, And I don't want to sit here and just say, or anyone that may feel that way, as far as just the term being anti-Semitic. I feel like that, like I said, man, it just gets thrown on people.
Just stereotype.
Or any label
It's a stereotype.
you want to call somebody. It's just a quick way to dismiss somebody.
Brother Farrakhan was, Martin Luther King was, Muhammad Ali was.
And like I said, this was prior to his apology. So just to be clear, he has come out and put out an official apology after he was suspended. So this what we just listened to was prior to him being suspended. And I think this is what the NBA commissioner and the Brooklyn Nets owner, they were waiting for him to come out and actually issue an apology. That's why they were asking him about the apology. And he felt like he didn't need to apologize because he didn't make the video. He makes a valid point in that aspect that I didn't make the documentary. Just if we just wanted to get technical, he didn't make the documentary.
True.
He posted it.
Very true.
As if it's information. So like I just the analogy that I gave earlier, me as someone who, I guess you would say, most of my life, I've grew up Christian. I've grew up Baptist. That's just kind of how I grew up, right? So if I just posted a link to the Quran, is that me being shit, like saying anti-Christianity? Like, and you're automatic, I owe the Christianity, the Christian community an apology?
Right.
Like, that's how I'm looking at it. I'm like, he didn't add any context. It would be different if he actually quoted something that was very demonstrative, very specific, or very hurtful to a specific religious group. 100%. And I feel like that's not the right way to go about it. He didn't do that.
The question is, how are we supposed to feel now about the Brooklyn Nets suspending this man after he came out and spoke his truth, and then also showed us the reason why he did what I guess he did, which is, you know, it was his heritage. So now are we supposed to feel some way against the Brooklyn Nets? And you know what I mean? Like, now you're sitting here punishing someone
the Brooklyn
based
Nets
upon
are doing
their beliefs. So.
Well, I think the Brooklyn Nets, and correct me if I'm wrong. The fact checkers out there, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the Brooklyn Nets owner Jewish?
I don't know.
From what I've heard. But I'm just saying in that context, because if that is the case, you know, or anyone that's making the decisions, let's call it Adam Silver, anybody, if anybody's that's making the decisions on him being suspended and they are personally feeling offended by that and they're making the decision on suspending him, that's a different context, because you can't just go out flat out and insult the person cutting your check and expect no consequence. And at least, and the interpretation of an insult is from the person that believes they've been insulted, not the other way around. So interpretation means something, whether we can decipher whether it was actually an insult or not. The person receiving is the one that's taking the action. So it's a complex issue.
Shout out Steve Nash.
No, he ain't got a job.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying.
He ain't got a job.
Come be a guest. Sit right here.
They're going to blame it on him.
Let us know what happened, right? Keeping it on the subject with this social, you know, media, and obviously Kyrie putting out there in social media whatever he wanted to say, right? Did he tweet that? What did he do? Was it a tweet?
He just tweeted out basically promoting the I think it was the Amazon link or something like that of the documentary.
Is that tweet still up?
No, he deleted it.
He deleted.